light, turn right onto Maryland 245 North, Hollywood Road.
Maryland is the crab capital of the United States, and I decided I was going to go to 16 different crab restaurants to figure out which one was my favorite in the entire state. Now, I did it over 6 different trips, and I tried to get to as many Maryland counties as I possibly could, and I ended up deciding to judge each one based on the crab seasoning, the feel, and the price/service of the restaurant. Let's go ahead and get this tour started. Okay, so first up is going to be Seabreeze restaurant right here in Mechanicsville, Maryland. This is in St. Mary's County, which is where I live. So this is going to be the closest one so far. Now, driving through the area, there is a ton of cornfields and things like that on your way in. But as soon as you get close to the restaurant, the Patuxent River starts to come in view. And as you pull up, you're greeted in the parking lot with this amazing view right here. So let's go ahead and go inside and check it all out. Now, just like a lot of crab houses in southern Maryland, Seabreeze is on the older side. It's a cinder block and brick building, and inside there's nothing too updated or modern about it. But for some reason, a lot of people like it this way. The decor is very crab house vibe, and the menu is pretty simple as well. Now, what can't be beat is the view outside of this window right here. To my right is the Patuxent River, and you are sitting right on the water. The crab price for today is market price, which turned out to be $35 for a half dozen, so that's what I decided to get. As I waited for my crabs to come out, I decided to go walk around the whole location and just check out the water and the docks as well, and it seemed like a pretty standard waterfront restaurant. This pier, though, was a little bit on the older side, and there was a ton of seagull poop all over it, and you definitely don't want to jump in the water because there was a ton of jellyfish as well. But once you got out here, the views were absolutely amazing. I walked back to shore, and there's a little tiki bar with a stage, I'm guessing, and there's the walk-up tiki bar, and another pier that was in a lot better shape. So if you're going to bring your boat to Seabreeze in Mechanicsville, you probably want to park on this pier and not the other pier. Back at the table, I had my iced tea and my view, and all I was waiting for was the crabs. They give you a bucket for your scraps, and they also give you a crab mallet, which I use sparingly, but also they gave you a knife. Now, this knife does the trick, but I gotta say, I gotta show you a different knife later on in the video that works a lot better. After a little bit, the crabs came out, and I was really pleasantly surprised. They were bigger than I thought they were going to be. They looked pretty packed as well, and they had a lot of seasoning on them. For me, I like a good amount of seasoning on my crabs because I think it does make it taste a lot better. We had to do the claw test first, and these actually tasted really fresh. Now it was time to move on to the body meat. Now, my fear was going to a restaurant like this, you were going to get light crabs, but I did not. Every single crab that I opened up had tons of fat in it, tons of seasoning on it. Everything looked really good. In fact, these crabs were so heavy, you could actually scrape the points, which is something you can't do in a light crab. And if you've never scraped a point before, it means taking the little stuff that's inside the shell at that corner right there and taking it out. And it's almost like getting a little bite of a soft shell crab when you're eating hard shell crabs. I know it's not for everyone, but it's one of my favorite bites when you're eating hard shell crabs. Now it's time to go ahead and pick out the body, and I like taking all the guts out first and then cutting off the front of it and the legs and just getting like a hockey puck of meat. I find it so much easier to do than the normal kind of picking method that people use, and it takes a lot less time than a lot of other methods that I've seen. And that right there is an absolutely packed crab. It was packed full of meat. And as far as the taste test, this bite right here tasted like fresh crab that I've caught out of the creek. I gotta say, these were absolutely delicious. Clean up with that bucket's really easy. There was not much mess left on the table, and everything went in there. After I was done, I got the check, and it came out to $35 a dozen, plus my iced tea. And obviously, since this is the first restaurant I tried, it's going to be number one for right now. Next up, I was off to Charles County, specifically Newburgh, to try another iconic Southern Maryland crab house. All right, so we're at our next place, and it's in Charles County, and this is Captain Billies. Captain Billies is on the Potomac River, right here in Newburgh, Maryland, and it's been around for a while, and it's one of the classic crab houses in all of Southern Maryland. Let's go in and check it out. As I was walking up to the restaurant, I saw this cat playing in the grass. I just thought it was neat. And as I walked towards the door, I realized something I never knew. This is actually on a pier. So it's not on land. If you look here, all of the restaurant is on a pier. I decided to go ahead and walk out just to see the Potomac, and it's pretty crazy to see just how wide the Potomac River is right here by Captain Billies. As I walked back, I noticed there was a crab boat sitting on a lift, and I was kind of hopeful that the crabs I was going to get in here were going to be super fresh because of that. As I walked in, it didn't look like many people were there, but as I sat down, there were a ton of people outside, so I had to sit inside. Looking over the menu, I didn't see steamed crabs on it at first, but when I walked in, I did see that they had them for sale for $70 a dozen. At this point, I just wanted to make sure with my server that they did have crabs available, but I gotta say, for almost 25 minutes, I sat here without a single person coming up to the table. Not getting a drink, not getting anything. After about 30 minutes, I finally got an iced tea and all the stuff I needed to eat crabs, including some apple cider vinegar, and this hammer, and another one of those knives. So if you're looking for a better knife than one of these blue knives, and honestly in the videos, I'm going to start bringing my own knife, but you can buy them from my website, buythewaterstore.com. It has all the different seafood utensils I use. It has our oyster rankings as well, some apparel, and I've started to put the 10 fish reviews on there too. So if you're specifically looking for the knife though, this is the one that I recommend. It's $14 and it's the best knife for picking the crabs the way that I like. Finally, after about 40 minutes, the crabs came out, and they were mixed sizes. Now, it did come with butter, which is something that I don't normally use with blue crabs, but you can do that if you want. This was one of the bigger ones, and this one in front was pretty small, probably barely 5¼ inches. I will say, though, in my experience, size doesn't really matter too much. If you got a good, heavy, fresh Maryland blue crab, it doesn't matter if it's 5¼ inches or over 7 inches, they're still going to taste really good. Opening this one up, it seemed like it had a lot of meat, which is a good first step, and I went ahead, got it all picked out and ready to go. And you can see me struggling with this knife. At this point, I really wished I had brought my own knife. The meat didn't look gray at all or anything like that, and the crabs looked pretty fresh. Before the taste test, I got my apple cider vinegar out and put a little bit in the ramekin, and then adding to this, I'm going to put a little bit of their seasoning in there. Now, I have no clue, but for some reason, this dipping sauce goes great with blue crabs, and I know a lot of people think I'm crazy for saying that, but it just works. Now, one thing I did notice when I was eating this crab, there was not a lot of seasoning, and their seasoning just tasted like just basic crab seasoning. There was nothing special to it. But this crab was pretty well packed, and I decided I was going to go ahead and give it a taste, and I thought they tasted old. Honestly, I was pretty disappointed with the quality of the crabs at Captain Billies. Well, that was an experience. The crabs were on the older side, the food took forever, the seasoning was okay, and the atmosphere, honestly, inside of there, I thought was pretty cool, and I liked the waterfront setting, but out of the two that I've tasted so far, I'm gonna have to say Captain Billies is number 2, and Seabreeze is gonna be number 1. Okay, our first stop today is gonna be Cantlers. Now, Cantlers is an Annapolis institution, and I grew up in Annapolis, but honestly, I've never been here. So I'm excited to go ahead, give it a try, and let you guys know what I think. Walking up, the restaurant is pretty modest. It's not a huge restaurant inside, and the outdoor seating is not all that big as well. The menu itself is pretty simple, which honestly I kind of like, and outside was a cool vibe. There were a bunch of picnic tables, and they're actually communal picnic tables. I decided to go walk around, find the hand washing sink, and check out the waterfront. Down here was really neat. The docks were well maintained, and I think one of the coolest things was the fact that they had shed tanks for soft shell crabs. I haven't seen this at any of the other restaurants, and it's just a really cool reminder that a lot of the food that you're eating at Cantlers is coming right from the water of the Chesapeake Bay. Within a few minutes of ordering, they already had my drink out and the utensils I was going to use for crabs, and out of all the places so far, they're the only ones that had a proper knife. Now, they also gave me a bucket for my scraps, and after a few minutes, my crabs are out. Now, I got the supers, and they were actually really big. They were well over 6 inches, and they looked pretty well seasoned. Now, one of the most reliable ways to know if someone cooked a crab well is to do a claw test. And to do the claw test, basically you just need to break open the claw, and if the meat pulls cleanly out of the shell, you know it was well cooked. This one did that, and honestly, this was the best claw that I've had so far in this series.
We can train that. I mean, you're in dark for that. You're like, okay, in solution coming out. So that's the level that I've asked for on the bone. And that's going to be from HR. And we're going to get
After a little bit of work, it was time to taste the body meat of the crab. I dipped it in some apple cider vinegar and some JO seasoning, and it was absolutely delicious. These crabs were packed full of meat, but I'm not sure if they were actually worth the price that I'm going to show you later on. Don't forget too, when you get nice, full, heavy crabs like this one, you can scrape out the points and almost get little pieces of soft shell crab as a nice little treat. And as far as price, these supers were $90 for 6 crabs. All right, and so that was my Cantlers experience, and I gotta say, despite the prices, I mean, that $180 a dozen for the super colossal or the big ones like they said was a little outrageous, but I'm actually going to put Cantlers at number 1. And here are the reasons. 1, the crabs were absolutely delicious, packed and fresh. Also, I love the atmosphere of the whole place. And also, their crab seasoning was really good. The other thing that I would say is I wish they would give you a little bit more crab seasoning to kind of dip in as you're eating. But overall, I really like Cantlers, and it's going to be my new number 1. The next restaurant was about a 40-minute drive from Annapolis, and as I drove, I got more and more urban because I was headed towards Baltimore to go to Nick's Fish House. Okay, my next spot is an institution right here in Baltimore, and it's going to be Nick's Fish House. Now, it's known for a lot of different seafood, but crabs are what it's known best for. Let's go ahead and go check it out and see how it stacks up against the rest. As I got out of the truck, the first thing I noticed was this doesn't feel like your typical crab house experience. To me, I like it to feel a little more either rural or suburban, and this was urban. I will say the parking was super easy, and the outside of the restaurant and the inside of the restaurant were super cool. This had the most detailed menu out of any of the places I've been so far, and of course, since you're in Baltimore, it's got some natty bows as well. On each table, they had their own seasoning as well as some Old Bay seasoning. And as I looked around, I decided I really liked the atmosphere of the inside. While the outside felt really urban, the inside did feel like a crab house. As far as utensils, we got the standard blue crab picking knife and of course one of the hammers and a bucket to put all your scraps. Now they did give you fresh naps as well to clean up after you're done eating. Now these crabs were the absolute hottest crabs that I've had so far, and when I went ahead and opened up the shell, this is what happened. Based on how hot they were, these crabs were definitely steamed to order and not reheated, and it was time to give it a taste. These were actually really good. I don't know if they were as good as the Cantlers ones, but they were definitely right up there near the top. And as far as price, these ones were a little bit cheaper than Cantlers, but they were still $70 for 6 crabs. All right, so Nick's was a tough one for me. I like a more country, rural feel to a crab restaurant, and this is pretty much in Baltimore. There's a lot of construction noise going around, road noise, and there's just a bunch of things happening. So the location and the vibe for me is not my favorite, but it's not a bad place. Now, inside it does look pretty cool, and I actually liked all the different decorations and stuff like that. The service was great, and honestly, the crabs were absolutely delicious. Like, for that reason, if you're in the Baltimore area and you want some crabs, you can't beat this place. But I just can't put it above Cantlers. I'm going to say Nick's Fish House in Baltimore is going to be moved to number 2. To my last stop in Chesapeake Beach, Maryland. Okay, and so the last stop of the day is going to be Abners in Chesapeake Beach. Now, this is a totally different vibe than the other places I've been, and right next to it is actually like a casino game room, which is pretty crazy. Looking around, there's a marina, there's some townhouses and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and go inside and see what Abners is all about. The outside of Abners doesn't give the typical, crab house vibe, and the inside doesn't either, but the back deck was on the water, and it seemed like a pretty good spot to sit out there and eat. Unfortunately, it looked like it was going to rain when I was there, so I had to eat inside, but I did see some crabs on the piling before I headed back in. When I got back to the table, the crabs were already there waiting for me, and while there was some seasoning, they weren't really like seasoned well. Now, of course, I had to tell you what I got with these crabs. I got a crab knocker, I got a butter knife, I got some clarified butter, and a little bit of seasoning as well. Let's go ahead and give these crabs a try. The crabs were definitely hot and they tasted pretty fresh, but they were on the lighter side compared to the other crabs that I've had today. That being said, they were actually still really good. The claws were delicious, and at $45 for 6 crabs, it was by far the cheapest crabs that I've had so far today. Okay, so I just finished up at Abners, and I gotta say, it actually was a nice little restaurant. The crabs were fresh, they were a good size, and they were pretty cheap compared to the other ones I've had today. Instead of the $70 or even $90 a half dozen, they were $45 for a half dozen large male crabs, which isn't horrible so far in this series. But to me, it missed a little bit of that classic crab house feel, and definitely is geared more towards the tourists that come to Chesapeake Beach and North Beach to see the Rod and Reel Casino and even to gamble next door. And when I look back at all the rankings, I don't think I can rank it first or second, because while they were more expensive, I did like the other crabs better at, say, like Cantlers and at Nick's Riverside. And I can't put it past Seabreeze because I just like the old time feel Seabreeze has. It just didn't have the same feel that I look for in it. But overall, it was actually a really great restaurant. The service was amazing, the people were really kind, and the food came out super quick. The crabs were hot, fresh, and I really like the seasoning as well. And for right now, this is going to be number 4 out of the 16 coolest crab restaurants in all of Maryland. All right, so we're at our first stop today in Kent Narrows, and it's gonna be Fisherman's Crab Deck. Now, I actually spent a lot of time in Kent Narrows as a kid because my uncle owned the Kent Narrows Marine Supply, but I've never eaten at Fisherman's Crab Deck. Let's go ahead and go in and check it out. Walking up to the place, it was actually a pretty big complex. It looked like there was kind of a storage area, and then this little place right here was where you actually went in and ate, and there's also a pavilion out to the left. Their menu had a good amount of options on there, but we all know I was just here for the steamed crabs. The price wasn't on the menu, it just said price daily. I ordered my unsweetened iced tea and of course a half dozen crabs and decided to go walk around and explore. It is on the water and it looks like this is a dock that you could pull up with your boat, and I thought it was actually a well-maintained, nice looking area. One thing I did notice, there was a ton of road noise because you're really close to the Kent Narrows Bridge right where you're sitting. Inside there was a cool bar, and overall it was a pretty relaxed atmosphere inside. Now at the table they had paper towels, which is actually one of the first that I've actually seen that, and 2, they had their own seafood seasoning made by J.O. Spice Company. The crabs came out within 5 to 10 minutes, and honestly, they looked pretty good. Now the crabs came with 1 mallet, and of course, one of the plastic knives again. Cantlers is still the only one that has given me a metal knife, and I really appreciated that. Now for me, I know a crab is cooked well if when I open up the claw, it pulls cleanly from the shell. So I got my knife and my hammer, made a little bit of an incision on the top, and then I was able to bust this one open. And yep, this claw had a perfectly clean pull, so I'm pretty sure that these crabs are going to be cooked really well. I always like giving the claw a taste too to just see how sweet the crab is going to be, and this one was delicious. These were really hot, really good, and really sweet. Next, it was time to pick the rest of the crab. Now, one of the things that I also check to make sure it's a nice full crab is after I remove the shell, if you look in the corner of the crab shell, you can see if there's any of like a new soft shell crab forming in there. And this one was full of it. Look at this big piece of soft shell crab corner that I had right here. I think it's one of the best bites in the crab, and if you're not eating that, you definitely should start. Let's go ahead and pick the rest of this crab. Overall, this crab was packed full of meat, and now it's time for the taste test. The body meat was really good and really sweet as well. I'm not gonna lie, these were some of the best crabs that I've had so far, and they're definitely up there with Nick's Fish House and Cantlers. And when I got the bill, I was shocked because of the price of these crabs. Okay, I just left the Fisherman's crab deck, and I've been making it a habit not to ask the price of the crabs before I order them. Everywhere I'm going, I'm just ordering a large and then just seeing what the price is, and that way my decision about the crabs isn't based just solely on price. Now, that being said, I was shocked to see that the crabs that I got were $45 for a half dozen. That is some of the cheapest crabs I've had so far. Paired with the location and everything around here, I've been really battling back and forth whether or not this is number one or if this is number two. Now, I gotta say, because of the price, I have to put this above Nick's Fish House, and I just can't put it above Cantlers though. I like the atmosphere of Cantlers better. It's more laid back, it's more intimate, and while this one is cool and you can have a big group of people here and it's on the water and the water is beautiful and it's kind of close to everything, I just like kind of the neighborhood feel of Cantlers a little bit more as far as like the cool factor. So for me, I'm gonna say Fisherman's crab deck number 2, and Cantlers is still number 1. My next stop for the day took me a little bit further into the Eastern Shore, and no, I'm not going to Ocean City, but this place is on the way there. And a lot of people on the East Coast like to come here, walk around the small downtown, and check out some restaurants and shops. With everything else that we did today, I'm only able to get 2 crab restaurants in, and the last one I'm going to is the Crab Claw in St. Michael's. Now, St. Michael's is a cool little town, but I've heard some rumblings that maybe the Crab Claw is more of like a touristy kind of spot, so I'm curious to see what it's like inside and see how good the crabs are. The first thing I noticed was the actual Crab Claw was pretty far away from the area that I parked. There is parking right up front, but this is kind of the main parking area, and it's right off the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. It really wasn't a long walk, and there was some cool stuff to see, like this big boat and some old architecture. And when I got to the restaurant, you had 2 options. You could eat upstairs or outside on the lower deck. Now, I chose the lower deck because it is right on the water. I mean, you were sitting on top of it like you're on top of a pier. I got my iced tea, and there were some other guests there as well. These ducks hung around the whole time, and there were seagulls everywhere too. To pick crabs, the Crab Claw gave you a mallet and a metal knife. This is only the second place that has given me a metal knife, and that's a big plus to me. And if you're new at picking crabs, they give you one of these kind of place setters. This is a dead giveaway that a lot of tourists do go here though. The crabs looked really good, tons of seasoning on them, and every single one looked like it was a rusty bottom crab. Now it was time for this taste test, but you know I gotta start with the claw first. The knife gave me a little trouble breaking open the claw, but it did pull out perfectly, and this claw was delicious. And I noticed the sign when I was editing the video, and I just thought it was funny. As I was eating, I thought it was pretty neat that boats were passing by, including this big ferry, and honestly, it really contributed to me liking this place a lot. Now it's time to go ahead and pick the crab. These crabs were hot, they were packed full of meat, and honestly, they were really sweet as well. And they were some of the biggest crabs that I've gotten in this whole video series. Now that had me thinking, can I put these above Cantlers? And just based on the crab and seasoning, they were really high up there. And surprisingly, the price was less than Cantlers as well. So I just finished eating at Crab Claw in St. Michael's. I gotta say, I liked it a lot. The crab prices were okay. They were $66 for 6 crabs. They were big though, and they had tons of seasoning on them, and they were nice and full. Also, the atmosphere, I liked it a lot. It felt really relaxed, and I could have sat there for a while just picking crabs and watching people go back and forth on the water, and of course, enjoying the ducks as well. And for those reasons, Crab Claw is going to go to my #1 spot on the 16 coolest crab houses in Maryland. Okay, the next place I'm going to, I guess, is a staple in Baltimore County. I've never been here before, just like a lot of the other ones. And when I pulled up, I didn't see any parking whatsoever. So I had to park on the street, but I think there's a bigger lot down the street there that you can park as well. So let's go ahead and go in and check out Schultz's. To be 100% honest, when I first drove by Schultz's, I drove right past it because I didn't think there's any way this could be a crab house. It's in kind of like a residential area, and the building itself looks more like a tavern or a bar. The water is right over there, and walking up, I was relieved to see on the sign that's out front that it says they have hot steamed crabs. So I know I'm at the right place. Walking up to the front, I saw they've been open since 1969, so they've been doing this for a while. And inside, I was right. It was more of a tavern kind of bar feel than really like a crab restaurant. I picked the table back in the corner and really took in the ambiance of the whole place. While it's not a Crab House vibe, it was pretty unique. Looking over the menu, all the items kind of seemed like home-cooked meals rather than things you see in a restaurant now, and that's probably because it's been here for a while and doesn't look like it changed much. Now, on the tables, you get paper, of course, and then one knife, which is a butter knife, and a crab mallet as well. It took 30 minutes to get the food out, but that's because they did steam them fresh back there, so I'm okay with waiting. While I waited, I talked to some of the locals, and they all raved about the crabs, and I can see why. They were a good size, they were well seasoned, and all of them felt pretty heavy. Now, I always like to start off with the claw because I think it's a really good indication of how well the crab is cooked, but before I even started with that, I tried their seasoning, and it was really unique. I'm not sure what was different about it, but there was something extra in that seasoning compared to other crab seasonings. I gently used the hammer and the knife to break the claw open a little bit, and for the most part, this claw pulled okay. Now, it did have a little bit of stickage inside the shell, so to me, that means they're a little bit overcooked, but nothing too crazy at all. Now, this was an absolutely fresh blue crab claw. It wasn't reheated, and you can tell that they really did cook it to order in the back. After eating the claw, it was time to pick out the rest of the crab body. And while it was no surprise how good these fresh crabs tasted, it was a surprise to me to see the bill. These crabs only cost $32.50 for a half dozen crabs, making them the cheapest crabs that I've gotten so far. Okay, so I'm back from eating at Schultz's, and here are my initial thoughts. One, it's not like a typical crab place that I would go to. It's much more like a tavern/bar kind of feel inside of it, which is perfectly fine, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. Inside, I was the only one there for a little bit, but then you could just see the regulars started showing up. It had a community feel to it, which was pretty neat. The crabs were steamed fresh because they took about 20 minutes or so to actually come out on the table, and the seasoning was the most unique seasoning I've had. I'm not sure what extra was in their seasoning, but it might have been more mustard seed than other places, and it was really good. As far as the crabs, they were definitely hot, they were definitely fresh, and they tasted good as well. And probably one of the craziest things was when I ordered the crabs, I ordered a half dozen large, and they came out to $32.50 for a half dozen. And it's really having me struggle where I should place them. I know for me, it doesn't beat my #1 right now, which is the crab claw, but I don't think I can put it 3 because I don't really love the tavern feel to it. There was nothing wrong with the restaurant itself. It just wasn't where I'm used to eating crabs and where I feel like it's a cool spot to eat crabs. And after some back and forth, I decided to put Schultz's at number 5 in the coolest places to eat crabs in the state of Maryland. The next crab house was in the neighboring county, Harford County, and it was also in a unique location. Okay, so the next spot again is another one that's not on the water. Now it has 3 other locations, I believe, and this one is in kind of a strip mall area. It's actually right next to a Panera. It isn't a typical location that I would say for a crab house, but supposedly they have some of the best crabs around. The atmosphere is supposedly pretty cool inside, and based on the outside, it does look new and fresh. So I'm excited to go ahead and give it a try. Let's go check out Conrad Crabs. Now, out of all the crab houses I've tried so far, this is probably the newest, the most modern, and the largest as well. The dining area inside is absolutely huge and spacious, and I gotta give it a few bonus points because it looks like it has a good oyster bar with actually a good variety of oysters. Their menu is pretty extensive and it had something for everyone, including people like myself who have food allergies, and they did a great job of labeling everything. Also, why are deviled eggs a common appetizer in Baltimore? I just don't get that. Before the crabs came out, I got some popcorn and they brought me this huge cup/pitcher of iced tea and my bucket of tools for picking crabs. They got me paper towels, 1 wooden crab mallet, and 1 of those plastic knives. Conrad's also has their own seasoning, and they have some of it on their table as well, and it's also made by J.O. Spice. I feel like everyone has J.O. Spice seasoning. The crabs came out hot after about 20 minutes, and they looked really good. They were a good size large, and I was excited to give them a try. You guys know I gotta start with that claw first to see how well they're cooked. And after finally getting this plastic knife through the crab claw, I was able to break it apart and see if it pulls cleanly. And it sure did. These are some well-cooked crabs. Now it's time for the taste. And these crab claws were really good. To me, these crab claws are up there in the top 4 category for sure. Now it was time to pick the rest of the crab. And just like I thought, these crabs tasted delicious. They're definitely in the top tier crabs I've tried so far. And as far as price, they weren't too bad either. They were $52.50 for that half dozen crabs. For me, if this place was on the water, it would be the total package. Okay, I just finished up at Conrad's, and honestly, I was surprised that the crabs could be so good in basically a strip mall area. Now, I'm not going to put these in the top 3 or 4, but I do think the crabs themselves were as good, if not better, than Schultz's. They were a little bit more expensive, but not too bad. They were 50-ish a dozen, or 50-ish a half dozen, 55 a half dozen. But they were less expensive than Nick's Fish House. And I like the inside feel of it and the outside feel of it. And the fact that they have an oyster bar and all that kind of stuff too kind of adds to the coolness factor of the crab house itself to me. It's a tough one, and I can't put it above Nick's Fish House because it's not on the water, and I really like that in a crab house. But I can put it above Schultz, and this is going to be the new number 5. My last spot of the day was heading back towards St. Mary's County, and it's a restaurant I'm pretty familiar with. Okay, it's my last spot of the day, and I'm back in Anne Arundel County, and I know that I've already done Cantlers in Anne Arundel County, but this spot was actually mentioned a lot in comments, so I had to go check it out. When I drove up here, it looked pretty busy, so let's go ahead, get a table, and enjoy Mike's Crab House. So like I said, as I pulled up, I was surprised how many cars were in the parking lot, but as I walked around to the edge of the restaurant just to check it out, I saw that the patio actually wasn't that full at all. The inside had plenty of space as well, but I decided I wanted to eat outside on the water. Once I got seated, I already had all the paper on the table, and they gave me, again, a plastic knife, of course, a wooden hammer, and some paper towels as well. While I waited for the crabs, I went for a walk, checked out the hand washing station and the piers, and even checked out the bridge that I used to fish underneath as a kid, right there on the South River. Being here actually brought back a lot of memories, and it was actually good to be back in this area again. When I got back to the table, the crabs were sitting there waiting for me, and it was time to check out just how good they were. They came with some butter, apple cider vinegar, and some seasoning, and the first one I pulled off the top looked really good. It was heavy, and it had a little bit of rust on the bottom too, which means it should be packed full of meat. After breaking the claw open, it pulled out perfectly. These crabs seemed like they were perfectly cooked. And honestly, the claw meat was very sweet, and I was excited to eat the rest of the crab. And the body of this crab actually tasted pretty good. Overall, I was really impressed until I got to the second crab. Normally at each spot, I eat 3 or 4 crabs just to make sure the product gets consistent. And in this case, when I went for my second one, this crab was extremely light. I mean, there was barely any crab meat whatsoever. I know this can happen from time to time, but it was unfortunate to see when I'm paying over $60 per half dozen. So I just finished up Mike's, and it brings back a lot of memories. I used to hang out on the South River a lot with my friends, fishing underneath these bridges and catching crabs too. Now the restaurant itself, of course, has an awesome location. It's well kept. There's tons of friendly servers there to help you and stuff like that. And the crab prices weren't horrible. They're right around $60 for the half dozen. Now most of the crabs I got were nice and heavy, but I did have one that was pretty light. And because of that, I think I gotta rank this lower than some of the other crab restaurants. If I'm looking back at the list, I don't think I can rank it above anyone in the top like 7. And then I'm looking at Abners. So it's between Abners and Mike's Crab House. And I got to give the nod to Abners. So because of that, right now, Mike's Crab House is going to be number 9 on my list of the coolest crab houses in Maryland. Okay, so I'm back on Maryland's Eastern Shore, and the first stop is going to be in Rock Hall. Now, there are a few options, but the one that I chose is on the water, and it's called the Waterman's Crab House. This is my first time to Rock Hall, and honestly, the area around the restaurant was pretty cool. I walked behind it and noticed that there were some crabs steaming behind the restaurant, which was a good sign. Before I went in and sat down and got a table, I decided to walk around the marina that kind of surrounded the restaurant. There was a charter boat row, which had a few boats on there, but not as many as I expected, and maybe because they were out on this beautiful Friday. After walking around a little more, I headed inside, and I was surprised to see just how updated it was inside the restaurant. Now, I decided not to sit inside, but rather sit outside because it was a beautiful day. And the outside was actually really nice as well. You were right on the water, and if you look close enough, you can see the Chesapeake Bay Bridge off in the distance from where I was sitting. I ordered my half dozen crabs and of course got an iced tea. It came with a plastic knife again, a crab mallet, and a bucket to put your scraps. The crabs came out within about 5 minutes or so, and when they came out, they looked pretty good. Most of them were right around that 6-inch range, and I got large, so that does make sense, and all of them were pretty well seasoned. Now it was time to taste the claw, of course, first, and I got the plastic knife, used the mallet to kind of crack it open. I find this the easiest way to do it so you don't get a bunch of shell in the meat as you open the claw. After a few whacks, I was able to break the claw open, and it was time to give this one a taste. And while I did think it tasted okay, it did lack the sweetness of like a typical Maryland crab to me. Next, I mixed up my J.O. and apple cider vinegar and got to work picking the crab's body. The body meat had a similar taste to the crab claw meat. While it was good, it wasn't super sweet, and at $60 for a half dozen, I was a little bit disappointed. Okay, I'm back from Waterman's, and I gotta be 100% honest, I'm a little bit torn right now, because I really like the vibe, the feel of the whole place. I saw the crab boats pulling up, I saw the crabs being steamed over here, and I thought this was gonna be a really good spot. The seasoning was really good, the crabs were a good size, and when they came out they were warm, and the first claw actually looked okay. But when I tasted it, it just tasted off. Now, I'm not saying they were bad crabs or that they were ones that, should be sent back. They just weren't as good and as fresh and as sweet as some of the top ones. And so I'm going into my head right now to think where that would stack up against the other ones. And I would put it above definitely Captain Billy's because of the feel and because the crabs are better than Captain Billy's. I think I'm going to put it above Mike's as well because every single crab was packed. They weren't the sweetest tasting crabs, but every single crab had a ton of meat in it. And I like the seasoning better than Mike's. But again, it's that line with Abners. Now, here's where it comes down to it. Abner's crabs tasted better. Abner's crabs are cheaper, but it didn't have the same vibe. So in my head, I think I got to keep Abner's above Waterman's for right now and go ahead and put Waterman's above Mike's but below Abner's. The next spot is still on the Eastern Shore, and it was actually just across the street from one of the ones that are ranked in the top 3. Okay, I'm at the next crab house, and before I tell you what it is, I want to remind you too that the last 3 that I'm going to be doing in the final video are going to be viewer choice. Right now, I'd say that Red Roost in Quantico and Mr. Bill's Terrace in Essex are the 2 that are really standing out, but if there are other ones that you want me to try, make sure you make a comment of what it is and get as many likes as possible, and I will go there. So for this one, I'm still on the Eastern Shore, and it's right across the road from one I've already been to. I'm going to go in and check out Harris Crab House. Now, I'm not going to lie, when I walked up to Harris Crab House, I was a little taken back by the parking lot. It feels really industrial up front, and you don't get the waterfront vibe until you walk out to the back. Inside the restaurant was actually really well done too. It was newer, and I love those oyster can labels that were on the wall. You can see walking outside, while the patio is not huge, there was plenty of seating, and it was right on the water, which I love. There was a fair amount of bridge noise from the Kent Narrows Bridge, but overall it was actually a pretty nice setting, and it was cool to watch the boats go by. Now, my crabs came out super quick, and I overheard my waitress saying that these were the last 10 larges they had. Just like the other restaurants, I got my crab mallet and, of course, another plastic knife. Guys, I think we need to change from plastic knives to metal knives. I think it would make the experience so much better. At least for me, it would. Now it's time to try the claw on the very first crab. You know what I do? I break it using the knife, give it a dip in the JO, and this stuff was absolutely good. The claw tasted sweet, you could tell the crab meat was pretty fresh, and I was actually hopeful that this was going to be up there in the top 5 or maybe even top 8. As I picked out this crab, I still felt that way. This was a nice, full crab, and after breaking it open and giving it a taste, I felt like we were back on track. But while this crab was nice and full, the rest of them were a different story. The other 5 crabs were pretty light. This one still had a good amount of meat, but all the other ones had about half that much meat in them. I don't know if it's because I got the last 10 or it just was the time of the month that crabs are running lighter around this area, but I was pretty disappointed. But I will say I was pleasantly surprised that these were $45 for 6 crabs instead of around $60 that a lot of places have been. Okay, I just left Harris Crab House, and the first crab was really good actually, and all the rest of the crabs tasted really good. But out of the 6 that I got, I'd say 4 of them were pretty light. And they were also over $15 cheaper than Mike's Crab House. So I'm kind of stuck about where to put them. The location was nice. The restaurant looked really nice inside. The patio was right on the water, which I loved. It was cool to see all the boats go by and all that kind of stuff. But I'm having a hard time with the light crabs. I can't rank them down at Captain Billy's. And honestly, I think the crabs were better than Mike's Crab House as well. I think I'm going to have to rate these. I think I'm going to have to rate these crabs just above Mike's Crab House. Okay, we're at our final place for today, and I got to be honest, I hope it's better than the other 2, because right now the 2 that I've tried are near the bottom of the list, and I want something in the middle because I feel like people on the Eastern Shore are going to be upset with these ratings. Let's go in and check out the Kentmorr Beach Bar and Grill. Now, the Kentmorr Beach Bar and Grill is right there in the Kentmorr Marina, and it's a fairly large marina. There was a lot of people around that were just going to the marina, but it looked like the restaurant was fairly busy as well. I chose to sit outside, and I think the vibe that I would describe it as would be like you're eating in someone's backyard. They even had some cornhole boards set up for you to play while you were waiting. And of course, we got another plastic knife and a crab mallet, some apple cider vinegar, and the crabs came out really quick, like within 5 to 7 minutes. It felt really heavy, and most had the rust on the bottom. Now, I must have got some crab mustard on my camera, so I apologize for it being blurry, but let's go ahead and taste this claw to see if they taste as good as they look. I got it all ready to eat, and I gotta say, I was really hopeful for this bite to taste good, and it definitely did. It was the best claw I had all day. Then I went ahead and started picking out the body. And the body meat did not disappoint either. While it wasn't the best crab that I've had overall, I was really happy with how full it was and the taste as well. Well, we definitely ended on a better note. The things that I liked about Kentmorr were, one, the atmosphere is pretty cool. It was like sitting in someone's backyard and eating crabs. I sat at a picnic table. It was all grass where I was. There was some cornhole and stuff like that too. So that was pretty neat. But we all know the most important thing is the crabs. And when they came out, they looked nice and heavy. They looked fresh. My only knock that I noticed is the seasoning fell off the shell after it came out. Not a big deal, but still one of those things that you want to see it stick to the shell a little bit more. I cracked open the crabs. They seem hot. They seem fresh. I was happy about that. And they tasted really good. But again, we've had so many good crab restaurants. It's tough to know where to put this. I know that it's above the other ones I've tried today, but I don't know if I can put it above, say, Conrad's or even Schultz's. Now, Schultz's is interesting because it's not on the water. It's a tavern. It's not a feel that everyone would like, but the crabs were cheap, the crabs were good, and the seasoning was actually really unique, and I really liked it. On the other hand, Kentmorr is definitely one of those places that I could see a lot of people thinking is a quintessential crab spot. The seasoning was spot on. It was J.O. seasoning. It had big rock salt or flake salt in it. So I could see why someone would put that above Schultz's. But for me, I think for my preference, I'm going to put Kentmorr just below Schultz's at number 7, and that's also above Seabreeze. All right, so I'm on the last day of trying crab restaurants around Maryland, and this is my first stop, and it's one of the ones that you guys really wanted me to go to. Now, I actually went to college right by here at Anne Arundel Community College, and so I'm pretty familiar with the area, but again, I've never been to this restaurant. Let's go ahead and check out The Point. When I pulled up to The Point, I realized pretty quickly it's at a marina. The restaurant is kind of down the hill in the parking lot, kind of tucked away, and you don't notice it when you first pull up. But when you get there, you realize it's a pretty unique spot. It looks like it's all outdoor seating, it's right on the water, and bonus points, they give you metal knives. They also gave me a crab mallet, of course, their own seasoning blend, and some apple cider vinegar. I mixed a little seasoning in the vinegar and sat there and waited for my crabs to come out. Now I noticed on the menu that they say they only serve Maryland crabs, which is one of the few restaurants I've actually seen say this on their menu. Now looking around, you can see it just is a cool outdoor vibe, and within 20 minutes my crabs were on the table. I know they look a little smaller, but every single one was over 6 inches. I think it was the 0.5 lens. I got everything ready and it was time to taste one of the claws. I was pretty excited to do this claw taste test with an actual metal knife, and it does make it a lot easier for the method that I use. You just get it started with the tip of the knife, and then you're able to leverage it and kind of break it open just like that right there. Now, it was time for the tasting of the claw, and I gotta say, while they did look like they were gonna be good, they probably were a tiny bit overcooked because the meat didn't pull cleanly from the claw, but the taste made up for it. These were some of the sweetest claws that I've had so far. Now it was on to picking out the crab body. Okay, it's official. You guys know me better than I know myself, and you're right. The Point was actually a really good crab restaurant. I liked it because it seemed really like laid back, local. I liked the outside seating, and I really just enjoyed being there. I could have sat there honestly all day and just ate crabs. Now, as far as the crabs, they were locally caught crabs according to the menu, which I know doesn't make a difference in taste, but it does make a difference in feel. It feels good to have a local restaurant supporting the local seafood industry. And honestly, they were some of the best crabs that I've had so far. They were well steamed, they were well seasoned, they came out and they were a good size. And I've been struggling where to put this. It's definitely top 5, and I think looking at my top 3 right now, it's better than the Fisherman's Deck. I'm gonna go ahead and move the Point into the top 3 and put it at number 3. Okay, spot number 2 was 3 hours and 30 minutes from my house, but so many people said that I had to come here that I knew I had to check it out. It's a restaurant that was converted from an old hen house or chicken house and now is one of the best crab restaurants on the Eastern Shore, according to a lot of people. Let's go and check out the Red Roost. I'll be honest, this was not what I expected in a crab house. I walked inside and all over the walls were dollar bills and other things that just made it feel like more of a dive bar and a chicken coop somehow combined. Like, look at these cool rafters and stuff like that. This by far was the most unique restaurant that I was in throughout this crab tour. They actually had a pretty big menu, and it was the first restaurant that I've seen that actually has their own mallets with their name stamped on them, but unfortunately we do have a plastic knife. I got my iced tea, and within about 10 minutes my crabs were out. Now these were larges and they looked pretty good. I went ahead, pulled one off the body, and it was time to break open to it with my plastic knife. Now it's not ideal, but I made it work despite my phone falling, and the crab did pull out perfectly. I gave it a taste, and this was a really good claw, a good solid crab for sure. Let's eat the rest of it. Okay, so I just left the Red Roost and you guys are right. That was super unique and the crabs are really good. It reminded me of kind of like Eastern Shore Schultz's, I guess is the best way I could describe it. Inside, it kind of had that dive bar-y feel, the dollar bills all over the wall, not any outside seating or anything like that. And when I got the crabs, they were good. They were large crabs. They had a good seasoning and a seasoning that definitely was unique to the Red Roost. When I'm thinking about where to put it though, I'm just not sure. It's not in my top 5, and where I'm kind of putting it right now is around Schultz's. So is it better than Schultz's or is it just below Schultz's is where my question is. And looking at price, and that's going to be my determining factor, it was $45-ish for the crabs here, or $49, I can't remember which one, 45 maybe, and it was cheaper at Schultz's. And the crabs were the same quality. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to put Red Roost just below Schultz's. But if you're looking for a unique crab experience in the Eastern Shore and you love a good dive bar and delicious crabs, you should definitely check it out. And I see why you guys like it a lot. And after a 2-hour drive back to the Western Shore, I was at my last spot. I'm at my final restaurant for the day and for this entire series, and it's one that a lot of people recommended. I'm back in Essex, and I'm going to Mr. Bill's Terrace. Mr. Bill's Terrace had more of a sports bar than a crab house kind of feel, but I've heard great things about their crabs and their seasoning, so I know I had to give it a taste. Now they had a plastic knife, the wooden handles, paper towels, and everything you need right there on the table, and it was time to taste the claw first. These came out super hot, almost too hot, but I was still able to get my knife, open up this claw, and give it a taste. I'm not sure why it exploded everywhere when I opened it up, but I noticed these claws were a little more crumbly than other ones. I got a bite of part of the claw there, and I was surprised. It was actually pretty sweet. And now it was time to go ahead and move on to picking the body of the crab. I liked Mr. Bill's Terrace. I liked the crabs. The crabs were meaty. The crabs were really, really sweet. They were good crabs, and the seasoning had a lot of black pepper in it, and I liked the taste of that too. The inside reminded me of Abners, but not on the water. And the price of the crabs are up there. They were $57.50. So automatically, I'm trying to think basically where I want to put this. In my opinion, gosh, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to place this above Abners, but below Schultz's and Red Roost. And after thinking about it a little bit more, here is the final ranking for the 16 coolest crab houses in all of Maryland. This is going to be the final order of the list for the top 16 crab restaurants, in my opinion, in Maryland.